In this demonstration, you will see how to install Exchange Server 2003 onto each node of a cluster, how to install the Exchange Virtual Server on the cluster, and how to verify that the Exchange resources are capable of failing over successfully. Before installing Microsoft Exchange Server 2003 in a cluster, you must use the Cluster Administrator to move cluster resources from the node on which you are installing Exchange to another node. In this demonstration, Exchange will be installed on node A. As a result, all cluster resources must be moved from node A to node B. In Cluster Administrator, you can view that the owner of the cluster group is node A. The resources in node A are cluster IP address, cluster name, disk W, and the Distributed Transaction Coordinator. The Distributed Transaction Coordinator must be installed on each node before you install Exchange 2003. A group named Exchange CL01 has been created. This group contains resources for disks X and Y, the IP address of the Exchange backend server, and the network name of the Exchange backend server. This is the group in which the Exchange Virtual Server will be installed. The Exchange Virtual Server will be installed after Exchange is installed on nodes A and B. Right-click the Exchange CL01 group to move the group's resources to node B. After the Exchange CL01 resources are moved, right-click Cluster Group to move those group resources to node B as well. Now that resources are moved, Exchange can be installed on node A. To install Exchange, launch the Setup program from the Exchange Installation Compact Disc. You can either launch Setup directly or use the Exchange deployment tools to verify that your cluster meets all the prerequisites for installation. The Microsoft Exchange Installation Wizard copies setup files to a temporary directory, and then installation components are loaded. Once the Microsoft Exchange Installation Wizard is loaded, click Next to continue installing. You must then agree to the license agreement and enter your product identification number. On the component selection page, verify that the typical action is selected for Microsoft Exchange, that the installation path is correct, and then click Next. You must agree to the Client Access Licensing Agreement, verify that the installation summary is correct, and then click Next to install Exchange on node A. Exchange 2003 is then installed on node A. You can view the status of your installation on the Component Progress page. When installation is complete, the Completing the Microsoft Exchange Wizard page appears. Click Finish to complete the installation of Exchange 2003 on node A of the cluster. You must install Exchange 2003 on each node of the cluster. To install Exchange on node B, you would move cluster resources to node A and install Exchange from the Installation Compact Disc. After Exchange is installed on both nodes of the cluster, you can install the Exchange Virtual Server on the cluster. For this demonstration, the Exchange Virtual Server is installed on the cluster from node B. The cluster resources must be owned by the node that is used to create the Exchange Virtual Server. To install the Exchange Virtual Server from node B must own the Exchange resources. Right-click the Exchange cluster group and move the group resources to node B. To create the Exchange Virtual Server, you must create resources. The first resource to create is the Exchange System Attendant. To create the System Attendant resource, right-click the Exchange group and click New Resource. In the New Resource dialog box, identify a name for the resource. Select the Microsoft Exchange System Attendant resource type. Identify the Exchange group and then click Next. You must identify which nodes can be possible owners of the resource. We want both node A and node B to be possible owners of this resource. To install the System Attendant resource, you must identify a name resource and a disk resource. Next, select the administrative group that you want to use to manage the cluster. We are going to install the resource into the first administrative group. Identify the routing group that the cluster will be a member of. Next, provide the path to the data, and then click Finish on the summary page to create the new resource. When the System Attendant resource is successfully created, click OK. The Exchange resources that were just created are offline by default, so right-click each resource and bring it online. After the resources are all online, test moving them to the other node to verify that both nodes are able to take ownership of the resources. To move the resources, right-click Exchange CL01 and then click Move Group. The resources will all be taken offline and then moved to node A. Because all resources are online on node A, the installation is complete. In this demonstration, you have seen how to install Exchange Server 2003 onto each node of a cluster, how to install the Exchange virtual server on the cluster, and how to verify that the Exchange resources are capable of failing over successfully.